Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back your host of the PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit, Joe Hallett.
Better than the Cotton Eye Joe, I can tell you that. Lunch, if you did lunch right, you just skipped past everything and went straight to the cannolis. Eat dessert first. Life is short, right? Okay, welcome back, everyone. And before we get to our afternoon presentations, this question has been asked a couple of times, and I wasn't out here when John Lindert did it first. How many of you are attending your first summit? Just by a raise of hands. Wow, awesome. Awesome. Related to that, how many of you were at the first PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit back in 1988? I see some differences in the hair colors, that's for sure. All right? How many people have attended every PGA Teaching and Coaching Summit? I see you there, Nancy. Ed? Wow. That is awesome. How about a round of applause for those individuals? That's a commitment. All right, back to our show. You're just going to enjoy this. And even before I kind of get to the script, I want to throw this out there. Back in 2019, one of our next presenters with Lou Guzzi, it's always neat when we're instructors and we are out here and we go, great, we get to hear from a tour player, and it's always neat to hear their perspective. But I can tell you, when Hal Sutton came to this stage, he came out with a level of passion and honesty that was amazing. And if you played competitively, you knew where you went wrong by the time he got through. And if you've taught competitive players, you knew where you could be better. I can't wait to hear what he has to say. I'm honored to introduce our next Fireside Chat, moderated by Lou Guzzi, and with a man who needs no introduction, the one and the only Hal Sutton, ladies and gentlemen.
So, Mr. Sutton, that visual looks pretty familiar.
It does.
That is an amazing, amazing hole, and we're certainly going to talk about that in a little bit in your journey back to 2000.
I've hit my share of good ones and bad ones.
I think you have. Folks, we're going to have a really enjoyable hour with Hal Sutton here. Hal Sutton and I go way back. We've had a relationship for a long time. He just doesn't know it. So here we are, and we're going to have a good time talking about golf. In 1983 at Oakmont, I was just a young golfer, far from being in the profession, and I was trying to learn by watching these great players play golf. And I jumped onto the golf course at Oakmont, couldn't believe how fast the greens were in '83. Never saw them roll a green before, so that was a shock in itself. And then I watched my man Hal Sutton here, first hole. I think we all know that first hole and how difficult it is, make a triple bogey. And I made a big mistake, a really big mistake, because I was just young and dumb. I left and went and followed some other players, and I'm like, well, that's it for Hal. And then all of a sudden I see 8, 9 holes later, you're coming up there and you're back to even par. So my mistake, and I learned from that very quickly. Tell me a little bit about that hole, and then how a player like yourself, and we're going to bring up Mr. Tom Watson as well, handles that kind of situation and still keeps grinding.
Well, I was paired with Johnny Miller, which was the 10-year anniversary of his 63. So I was kind of hyped up for playing with Johnny Miller, and John Mahaffey was the third guy in the group. And, you know, I hit my tee shot and things went wrong on the tee shot. I don't even remember where it went. Doesn't matter. It wasn't very good.
It was in the high rough, I can tell you that much.
Okay, all right. See, I try to forget those sort of things.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
But anyway, you know, and green's going away from you there, and I got it over the green, and it just, one thing led to another, and it was bad. And, you know, I was able to put it behind me, which is something we'll talk about later. You know, putting bad things behind us. But I was able to there. I actually led that week in birdies and didn't win the tournament. Mr. Nelson ended up winning the tournament, but you know, Oakmont's one of the toughest golf courses in the world.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had my chin strap buckled and I was firing away at it, but it beat me.
It's interesting at that time, just an amateur player learning. I learned so much from Oakmont because when Hal had his triple, I left, I made the mistake. But at that time, big time, I was into watching Hal Sutton and Tom Watson and trying to design my golf swing around their swings. And Tom Watson was not hitting the driver well in a practice round, and he walked off after 9. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be something. And then here Tom Watson almost wins the golf tournament. Hal Sutton has a great week, makes all these birdies, and Tom Watson walks off after 9 holes of a practice round and then comes back and figures something out. You guys figure things out, don't you?
I was paired with the 3rd round there. It was Tom, myself, and Sevy. And we all held the lead at different points in the round. We were all playing differently. Sevy never hit a driver. He was scared to death to put it in the rough, but he still had the lead at one point in the round. You know, we all had a different way of playing at the time. And it was interesting to think back about how each strategy was different, playing the same golf course.
Would you say that the strategy back then has changed now with today's players?
I don't know. What do y'all think? Strategy changed. You know.
There was a grace in playing the course the way it was designed back then more so than today?
Well, it had a lot of trees on it, and I haven't been back to Oakmont, but the pictures I've seen, it has no trees anymore.
Right. You wouldn't recognize it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd even recognize it.
No. Interesting. Well, 1983. We have a video that I'd like to run first that we'll take a look at. Hal has not seen this. And then we're going to have a little discussion about what happened in '83 and you winning the PGA Championship. Leslie, let's run that video.
After losing a 6-stroke lead on the final 18 2 weeks earlier at Williamsburg, can Hal Sutton respond to the pressure and hold the lead of this, the coveted PGA Championship?
Hal's drive was in the right-hand rough. He is now on the green in 3, putting for a birdie at the par 5 first. Look at this, and he makes it for a birdie. Holy birdied on Thursday to take the lead, and he's never looked back. Sutton is driven in the right side of the fairway, about 200 yards from the pin. And he's hit so many marvelous, great shots in this round with a 5-iron. Good, aggressive swing. Oh, man, and puts the ball exactly where you want to. Hole high, putting up the hill. He'll remember that shot the rest of his life, I guarantee you.
Responding to an incredible Sunday challenge, Hal Sutton is now 2 putts away from outlasting his boyhood idol and winning his first major.
Putting uphill, no time to charge too hard, and leaves himself just the kind of putt you'd like to have to win your first major professional golf tournament and be the 3rd wire-to-wire PGA champion.
So, under the towering eucalyptus and graceful palms of Riviera, Hal Sutton, in only his 2nd year on the tour, fought off the greatest player the sport has seen to win the 1983 PGA Championship.
To beat Jack Nicklaus, I told this story up there in the beginning that when I was 12 and 13 years old, he was winning all of his major championships, and I used to go out on the putting green. I had 2 friends that I played golf with all the time, and they'd pick Gary Player or Arnold Palmer or somebody like that, but I had to beat Jack Nicklaus on the putting green, and I just can't tell you what a great thrill this is for me.
Hal Sutton, PGA champion, 1983.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have to dive a little bit into that video because there's a little story 2 weeks earlier that you might want to tell the folks about, along with obviously, you know, a 1-stroke lead with Jack Nicklaus waiting right next to the green. An amazing, obviously, accomplishment for you.
It was, as Dave Moore said, I'll never forget it.
Yep.
2 weeks prior to that, I had a 6-shot lead at Kings Mill at the Anheuser-Busch, and Calvin Pete ended up beating me, and I'm not sure that I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Calvin's victory, but I beat myself. Calvin didn't beat me. And, I didn't have control of my mind. I lost control and I couldn't stop it. And, it's like a train running downhill, the brakes aren't enough.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find the brakes. And it was the most devastating thing that had ever happened to me. I didn't think there was a person in the world, if you spotted me 6 shots, I didn't think there was anybody that could beat me. And I forgot that I could beat myself in that place. Anyway, that night in Virginia Beach, I couldn't sleep a wink. I played at the Cavalier Club the next day and shot 62, didn't sleep at all, just had to prove to myself that I could still play. I called my dad, flew home. I said, look, I want you to go to the PGA with me. I said, I've got to redefine who I am. And I'm going to work all week long on trying to separate golf swing from mind. Remember what I just told y'all, separate golf swing from mind. It wasn't my golf swing that beat me, it was my mind that beat me. And I spent all week long trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? So I decided I was going out there and I was going to go into attack mode. And I played with Lee Trevino and Lanny Watkins to begin with the first 2 days. And what a pairing, a group like that. Lanny's one of the fiercest competitors that I ever knew. And certainly Lee Trevino's probably one of the greatest shot makers that ever played the game. And I opened up with 65 and 66 the second day, and Trevino said, man, are you ever going to take your foot off the gas? I said, the golf course will cause me to take my foot off the gas. Anyway, I held the lead the next day, and we go out the last day, and Nicholas is playing in front of me. And by the way, I want to stop for a minute and say happy birthday to my idol, Jack.
Yeah.
So much respect. I hope y'all have that.
Isn't that the best? I just love seeing the emotion. When you were watching that video, I could see the emotion. I think we all could, because it was just bringing you back. And then for you, when you just talked about at the end, your idol, Jack Nicklaus. I'm up here on stage, folks. I'm a little city kid from outside of Philadelphia, and I'm sitting next to Hal Sutton. I get it, but I just couldn't hit the shots you could hit. But to be on that golf course with a one-stroke lead, knowing he was up there, how did you handle that?
Well, he was in front of me, and let me tell you right now, I didn't need a scoreboard to tell me that he was birdieing all the holes in front of me, The crowd was letting me know. And I had a 4-shot lead going into number 12, and I was birdieing a lot of holes myself. And I bogeyed 12, which is not an unreasonable bogey, because 12's a hard hole at Riviera, if y'all don't know it. And 13's not the easiest hole, and I bogeyed it too. And then we get to 14, and I think I 3-putted 14 for the third birdie in a row, and all of a sudden I got a 1-shot lead. And we go to 15, and I certainly don't have the tee. I'm playing with, I think, Ben Crenshaw, my good friend Ben, and I think John Fote was in the last group.
Yeah.
And Foyt. Anyway, long story short, I turned to my caddy, Freddie, and I said, give me the towel. I said, all of a sudden, it's hot as hell out here. Need to wipe the sweat off. And I had my head in the towel like this, and I said, please don't let this define you. Let's get it together right now. And actually, I needed everything to go black. I couldn't look at everything and calm my mind down. I had to do this. And it was really one of those moments where I'm actually almost in prayer with myself. And I'm saying, let's just hit this next shot in the fairway. All we got to do is, we can't hit all the last 4 holes, all the shots at once. Fairway, that's all I need is fairway. And somehow I pulled it together and got it in, and I'm standing in the middle of the 18th fairway waiting to hit the second shot. I wasn't out. And it was a dream come true. I told this story a lot of times. If y'all have heard this before, I'm sorry you got to listen to it again. But I used to play golf at a little 9-hole golf course called Northwood Country Club, and I played by myself a lot because there wasn't anybody to play with. And I said I'd get to the last hole, you know, and I'd be standing out there and say, okay, I got to hit this shot and make par to beat Jack Nicklaus in the U.S. Open or the Masters. And, you know, I told myself right before I hit this shot, I said, I beat him every time I've ever done that. Let's do it one more time.
Oh, I love
So I was able to do it.
Great. I can't tell you how many times I've kicked your ass in my mind. On my golf course as well. You know, so you're on 18 and you're in the middle of the fairway, and you got to hit that shot into the green. I believe it was a 5-iron.
Right.
That you sent in there, and it kicked a little right, and it was just about as perfect as it could be for that uphill putt. Take us through what you felt in the fairway at that point in time. Is there a little bit of an out-of-body experience that somebody at that level has at times where they're in that zone, whatever that zone is for that player, but it's almost like they're watching themselves do something amazing?
So it's amazing how quiet your mind is when you're in a spot like that.
And folks, that's the video of our teaching summit when we started that video with how to promote this summit. You were talking about that.
You get into, I mean, you've done everything you can do for years, not just the last 71 holes.
Yeah.
For years, I had done everything that led me to that point. And so you have to trust that what you've done to that point has set you up to be the star of the show right there. Yep. You know, you can't doubt that. If you get there and you allow your mind to think, am I prepared for this? You're not prepared for that. If your brain is thinking about what not to do, don't is a terrible word to use. Never use don't. And, you know, all I said to myself is what I wanted to do. And, you know, you can't allow the moment to get so big in your own mind that it takes you out of that.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that victory. And I remember watching it on TV live. And boy, that was just some moment to watch. You go up there and shake Jack Nicklaus's hand, and he put his hand on your shoulder. And the great thing, you know, that I've always observed over the years with Jack is just he appreciated when somebody did something well.
Well, to that point, Lou, you know, I had the pleasure, and it was a pleasure, of being able to beat the two best players that's ever played in the game. And both of them showed so much graciousness in defeat. You know, that's a true champion. You know, even Jack couldn't have been kinder. Told me, he said, I expect you to be a force on the PGA Tour for a long time. And I probably let him down. I wasn't near the force that he thought I could be. But at the same time, you know, I appreciated him respecting what I had done. And then at the same time, fast forward into 2000, you know, when Tiger knew that he was beat, he looked over at me and gave me thumbs up. And
Yep.
when we went into the scoring tent,
Yep.
he said, Hal, you played fantastic. I'm proud of you. And that's what champions do. You know, they're not so selfish that in the moment of defeat that they forget about that's somebody else's moment.
Yeah. Well, we have to talk about 1986, Shinnecock. I mean, I was a stalker with this guy. So I would have at that time, we didn't have the cell phones in the practice rounds. We had those big VHS recorders. So I was always taking video of your golf swing. And in 86, you're on the driving range, getting ready to go. It's a practice round, and you are absolutely striping it. I mean, it's just a stripe show, folks. And I remember going back and kind of getting just a smidge off topic here before we go into this. I remember going back, and at that time, Al Geiberger had done a Cybervision tape where you would just watch his swing over and over again. And this is almost 40 years ago. I took two VHS machines and put them together, and I recorded Hal's swing from Shinnecock. I had recorded his swing with an iron shot. And my goal was to mimic, and I think that word's interesting for the summit, to talk a little bit about mimicking something, was to mimic his golf swing and Tom Watson's golf swing, a little bit of the hybrid, I guess. So we're going to roll a video here of that video from over 35 years ago. We'll take a look at that, and we'll continue to talk about this. And I would watch this over and over again before I would go out to play golf, whether it was a practice round, just practicing on the range, or playing in a tournament. And I would just burn the image of Hal Sutton in my mind and that golf swing. Now, folks, my video's coming up. All you coaches out there, you can beat me up later. Just send me a text or an email and let me know what I need to do. But that's 1993. And at that point in time, I had developed my golf swing. A lot of it through great coaching like the coaches in this audience today, and also mimicking your golf swing, and a lot of hard work, as we both have talked about, digging it out of the dirt. Any thoughts there, just from the academy side of things with mimicking?
That was a good job, because we didn't have very good video cameras at the time, you know. we didn't have the same capabilities at that time to really dissect somebody's golf swing. You know, tempo was really important to me. So, you know, I used to play a lot of golf with, this may be off the subject of mimicking. I used to play a lot of golf with Nick Price, and Nick and my golf swing were kind of different in terms of tempo. He was really quick, and I wasn't nearly as quick. And Nick would say, "Why don't you swing at it hard one time, Hal?" And I said, "I thought I did." You know.
I don't know. I thought you hit it pretty far. And I mean, when you think about what we were just discussing with dealing with you winning at Riviera and dealing with that 18th hole, I mean, you were hitting at that time a persimmon-headed driver.
Right.
You know, I mean, when we think about, and of course, we've talked about this with the kids, I like to show them the last persimmon-headed driver that I had and say, look, this is what we played with under pressure. And the golf ball is almost the same size as, and I had a McGregor driver from the 50s as the club.
Right.
And then dealing with that. And it's amazing that you can stand there, and I think of Jack when he was hitting his driver and fading it on 18 at Augusta, that you could stand there with confidence looking down at something that was so small now that we look at the drivers today.
Well, we didn't have today's stuff to look at, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it now, and it did look small, but I didn't mean to confuse you there a minute ago, Lou. You know, I had a slow swing and Nick had a fast swing, but we hit it the same distance.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to bring that out, because one of the things that I stress in the academy, you talked about academy, you know, a kid will come in and tell me they want to be 2 to the right, their path. And so what's your club face supposed to be if your path is 2 to the right? You know, some of them know and some of them don't know. And I said, how about we do this? How about we figure out what your fingerprint is instead of you deciding what your fingerprint is? Why don't we analyze this for a few minutes and see what you can do consistently, the best you can be, and that's the horse you need to get on and ride.
Can you sell that?
I have, you know, not always, because we've done a good job of telling the world what should be. And I never have figured out what should be. You know, how about tell Trevino that? And how about tell Jim Furyk that, 4th leading money winner of all time?
Yeah.
Thank God Jim Furyk's dad was his coach, because he didn't change his fingerprint. He said, let's ride this horse to the finish line. And I think that's really important that I bring that up. And I need to say something else. You know, I've always struggled with hoping that I don't say something that offends somebody. I'm not trying to offend anybody in this room. I think going forward, we've got to rethink how we do things with the youth of America right now. Thank you. Thank y'all for saying that. Because, yes, hallelujah. This is, we're not in church, but it's going to feel like we're in church for a little bit.
Do you want to walk around a little bit while you're doing your
yeah,
hallelujah?
let's walk around here for a little bit. That chair was very confining to me.
I see that. I'm getting ready to move around too.
So one of the things that I think with kids, they come in and they've got so many preconceived ideas. I want to get back to me saying that, you know, I don't want to offend anybody in here. You know, they don't care whether they offend anybody. Here's their biggest concern. They want to be connected and be liked. And all they're looking for is that little heart on the phone. And I can tell you right now, if y'all don't convince the kids that they got to get away from that, they can't be where they dream about being because there's too many people to please. And that will not work in the long run. Do you know how many people I had to please whenever I was in 1982 to 1990? I didn't have a lot of people I had to please. You know, it ended up, that caused me to hate the game for a while because I was supposed to be the next Jack Nicklaus, and all of a sudden I couldn't live up to that. All of a sudden my fingerprint wouldn't go that far. And man, I would tell my dad when I'd go home, I said, you know, I'm not playing that bad. Finished second 3 times this year, won once or whatever, but they think I'm letting them down. I'm not playing golf for them. I'm playing golf for me. They got that times 100 right now.
Hal, with what you're talking about, we had talked about this. Tell the folks about the lesson you learned from Byron Nelson and the relationship you had with him.
So I started working with Mr. Nelson in 1974, I think. 1977, I started working with Mr. Nelson. My dad did business with a really good friend of Mr. Nelson's, and he said, you need to let Hal come over to Preston Trail, meet Mr. Nelson, and let him talk to him. And I never had a lesson from him where he ever hit a shot. I never had a lesson where a video camera ever came out. I never had anything but his eyes and the sound of the golf ball that he had to listen to. We never spent more than 30 minutes on the tee, and I think that's really critical right there. Any lesson that goes much longer than 30 minutes is difficult both for you and for the student. Hard to retain anything more than that. So, I'm a player, I'm not a teacher. I teach, but I teach from a different standpoint than everybody else teaches. I'm talking about the whole picture, not a piece of the picture. I was a player, so I had to put together all the pieces to be able to become a whole. So anyway, Mr. Nelson, one day, when I first met him the first time, it was an honor. I knew everything about Mr. Nelson. I knew everything that he had won. I didn't recap that with him or recount it with him. All I did was he could tell that I had the utmost respect for him. And I listened intently. I never took my eyes off of him. That's another thing. How many times do y'all see your kids totally look at you right in the eye? Not often. I don't know why that is. I don't have an answer for why that is, but that is kind of the way it is. And anyway, so finally he would finish talking, and I said to him, so Mr. Nelson, I've dreamed about playing the PGA Tour for a long time. At this point, I was a sophomore in college. And he said, Hal, I said, Mr. Nelson, what do I need to do that? And this is the one word that he said, balance. You need balance. And he let me think about that for a minute. And I said, well, Mr. Nelson, that's pretty general. Can you give me more detail of that? Questions are a big thing. I like to ask questions whenever I was trying to learn. You know, I didn't want to tell him the answer. I didn't know the answer. I'm trying to find out the answer. That's different than today, too. And I said, Mr. Nelson, help me with that. And he said, okay, I'm going to help you with that with your golf swing. He said, if your body goes this way, something's going that way so you can stay on top of your feet. Everybody in this room understands that. We're going to offset balance somehow. We've got to counterbalance. And the best swings in the world look totally balanced at all points in the golf swing. They never look like they're off balance. And they find the rhythm and the tempo so that can be achieved. He said, there's part 2 to that, Hal. There has to be balance in your life. He said, because if there's not balance in your life, you can't have balance in your golf swing. Now, that was somebody that cared.
When was that, Hal? Do you remember what year it was?
That would have been the first year that I worked with him. And I worked with him for 3 years, and it wasn't because, I didn't quit working with him because I wanted to quit working with him. We kept a relationship the whole time. He just kept getting older and didn't, really want to go out on the practice tee that much.
Yeah.
Had a lot of times over lunch. Every time I went over there, 30 minutes on the practice tee and 3 hours over lunch. Never, ever let me pay him for it. And finally one day I said, Mr. Nelson, you got to let me do something. He said, Hal, there's this table saw I want. So I give him, he said, you can buy that for him. So I bought the table saw, took it to him. About 3 months later, I called him on the phone. He said, Hal, I cut the end of my finger off with that table saw. But anyway,
Well, we're on a time schedule here with this little trip down memory lane because I know you have some new information that you want to share with the folks about your golf academy. So I want to talk a little bit about the office. And before we talk about that, we're going to run a video. And of course, the office, obviously, we're going to be going into that shot with the driver and then the second shot with the 6-iron. Mm-hmm. So Leslie, why don't we run that video of the office, which is Hal's pre-shot routine.
And the butterflies have not stilled at this point, I should think.
I'm sure they haven't, Jim. No matter how much you've played, it's quite a feeling to stand here. A lot of thoughts go through your mind. Now you got to get your mind on your business, hit a good drive, and get the butterflies out.
Oh, yeah. And we heard, oh, yes, from a galleryite, and with good reason. Fine shot. Back up.
Place, you've got a chance. So now Hal Sutton.
And Hal, you can talk
leads
over
the
this
way.
if you'd like to, what you're doing there.
Leader with Ben Crenshaw, who's 3 holes ahead.
So this is the day after Greg Norman almost got in a fight with somebody that provoked him in the gallery, if y'all remember that. This was the year that Greg Norman led every major going into the final round, and I was really hitting it good that week and just couldn't get it to the house, and sometimes that's the case, you know. Getting that to the house is tough, especially in a major championship. My caddy at the time was Gino, and he was one of the greatest caddies of all time. I'll tell you all a quick story on number, whatever the par 3 is at Shinnecock. Is it 7 or 8, or which one is it? Somebody help me. 7, yes. Wind's blowing about 25 miles an hour in our face that day, and it's a tough shot. Everybody in here knows that that's ever been there. And it was one of those moments that I couldn't figure out what club to hit. I was kind of caught in between. Anybody ever been in that point in their life where in between clubs? And, you know, and I reached in there and I pulled out one club and I got back there. And Gino caddied for me all the time. He knew when I was out of sorts. And he runs over real quick and sets the bag down right in front of the ball between me and the me and the pin. And he says, now put that club back in there, and the next time you pull one out, be committed to that shot. And I'm thinking, man, this is the last round of the U.S. Open, and you're pulling this off with me? So he pulls the bag over there, makes me walk away from the tee. So I go back over there, and he says, I don't care which one you hit, but be committed to it. And so I consequently buried it underneath the lip of the bunker.
You stink.
But here's the truth. I hit one of the greatest bunker shots of my life up like that, and as I tap it in, Greg had already holed out, and as I tap it in and he's putting the pin, and he said, Hal, they were nailing the coffin shut, and you kicked it off. You kicked the top off. So, you know, having a caddy that will loosen you up in times like that is really important. So
with the office and the experience that you have and Hal uses the office as his way of seeing himself prepare to hit the golf shot, you talked about what happens behind the shaft and then when you enter the shot itself.
So, I missed that point there.
And you know, and why this is so important, I think, as coaches, this pre-shot routine and preparing somebody to hit a golf shot, once you've taught them what to do, how to breathe properly and how to get into that situation for 45 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it is what you call the office.
Well, you know, I always, when I have a kid in there, I'll lay a shaft down between him and the ball where he's about to hit it, and I'll say, let's get on this side. And first of all, I want to tell you, you are the CEO of your game. If you want to be great and do what you dream about doing, you must become the CEO. You have to always ask questions. You have to always be inquisitive, but you have to make decisions too. And back here, we deal with facts. Where's the wind coming from? How far am I? What's the lie like? What's the stance like? We're going to make all the decisions back here. And that's going to cause us to pull a club. Once we pull the club and cross that line right there, nothing takes over, nothing, the mind's eye. So the other day I had someone, we were talking on the podcast, and they said, what are you looking at when you look down there? I have kids ask me all the time, what are you looking at? Nothing, my mind's eye. I mean, they want to say, you're looking at a dimple on the ball, you're looking at whatever brand of ball, the name of it. No, I'm looking at everything down there. My mind is on the target. I can't allow my mind to come back here. I've already made all the decisions that I need to make. So now, nothing interrupts my mind's eye.
Will you go back? If something happens, will you go back?
If something happens, if something distracts me, and by the way, your mind is the biggest distraction we have. I'll get into that in a few minutes.
Yep.
But if something takes you away, if there's a don't, how many of you played golf and right before you hit it, don't do this? And all of a sudden, everything starts slowing down except your hands and arms. And that is really not good.
So wrapping this up, because I know we want to get to the Hal Sutton Golf Academy and a couple of the things that you're doing that are really cool. We're now on the 18th hole at TPC. And you're going to have to deal with this drive, and you've got a story about that. Leslie, let's play this video first, and then we're going to talk about that for a minute or two.
This from 179, John. This is 6 iron.
He's aiming way right.
Well, he's got it going right at the flagstick. It'll be up.
It is. And fist pump.
Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Just a formality. 17 years later, Hal Sutton is the Players' Champion again.
So good.
Her daughters. You can hear Sutton say that's what it's all about.
That's the office.
So physically, I wasn't nearly as good at that point, but mentally, I was way better. My self-belief and my confidence was riding high, but my self-belief was stable. I believed in Hal, probably more so than Tiger believed in Hal.
And I think it sounds like Freddie believed in Hal, too.
Yeah, Freddie did too. After I holed out the putt on 17,
Yeah.
all the way to the 18th tee, Freddie was telling me, you're the best driver in the game. You know you're the best driver in the game. Don't you ever think about hitting anything but driver. I want you to drive it down there all the way to the tee. So, it's like he took the whole bag away except the driver. But that was good because I needed the last shot in, and I knew Tiger was going to play that, Stinger 2-iron off there, and he hits it about 265 to 270. And the only club I had in the bag that could go further than 270 was the driver, and I needed the last shot in. So, memories like that, they never go bad, but there was a lot of years that led to that right there. And, I felt the whole world was on me at that point because that was Tiger's greatest year, and he was turning everybody back. And, I felt like I had to do something for golf, and somebody had to beat him so that they knew he could be beat. And I had him on the golf course that I knew I could beat him on because it was point A to point B to point C. And I could do that. It wasn't something that strength and power were going to be the victor.
You told me an interesting thought that you had when, of course, the Be the Right Club today was about not going into a playoff.
Right.
Yeah, getting it over with.
Yeah, I didn't know how much longer I could hold him off. I'll tell you all the truth. Tiger's the only player I played with. If we went over all the great players that I played with, it'd take us a while. He was the greatest player from a shot maker standpoint. He did not fear the next shot, no matter where it went. All the rest of us had a place we knew we shouldn't hit it.
Yeah.
Think about what I just said. That's a powerful statement that I just made. I would have loved to have lived that life for 1 week. Just let me live that life for 1 week.
Who was the greatest ball striker that you ever played with or was witness to?
I think Trevino was probably the best ball striker that I ever played with. He hit it solid all the time. His self-belief was off the charts.
What did you see in his action that you liked so much?
His commitment to him. That was the thing that I liked the most. I admire people that no matter what somebody else says, they can still be themselves no matter what. That, in today's world, think about that. I mean, that's powerful if you could do that.
So let's talk a little bit about the Hal Sutton Golf Academy and going from being the elite player that you were to being a coach and a teacher like so many in this room. And Leslie, we've got just a little video here, very quick, of just Hal's facility, and then I know you want to talk to the folks about what is important to you at that academy. A lot of bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful, beautiful place. So I'm going to kind of just back up a little bit and let you do your thing, and I'm going to enjoy that seat and a little bit of water. And Hal's going to talk about some of the things that's been going on for the last 2 years. And I'll be back.
Okay, Lou.
You got it?
All right, all right.
You all right? You nervous?
No.
Okay.
Do I act nervous?
Right.
You know, I started teaching, I did this because I wanted something to do. I've been a doer all my life, you know, and I'm not someone that can sit here and do this. And I mean, I didn't know, you know, I swung at it a little bit different than everybody else, and I didn't try to get everybody to swing at it the way I swung at it. That's not the intent of the academy at all. The intent is to help someone seek out their best version of them. And so, you know, I'm reading all about this, and I think you got to get all the bells and the whistles. You know, you got to have TrackMan. We got them all. So we got swing catalyst. We got all the video that you can possibly use, and I'm steady going along teaching and stuff, and I'm getting more confused all the time. That's what I thought. I thought some of y'all might feel my pain. So anyway, it didn't take me long to realize that this is not a game of numbers. You know, Jackie Burke told me a long time ago, this is an artist. You need to be the artist. Would you call Seve Ballesteros an artist, or would you call Seve Ballesteros a scientist? We all know what the answer to that is. He was an artist. And so I got frustrated in the beginning because, you know, we started teaching and they'd hit the shot out there, you know, and the ball's in the air, and they'd look immediately over to see what TrackMan said. And I'm screaming at them, look, watch the ball till it hit the ground, own it. Because the ball's saying the same thing this is saying. And the only thing you got on the golf course to make a decision with is the ball. So you better learn what that's saying and notice the language between the two, because that's all you got. Because this is the loneliest sport you'll ever play in your life. No one can help you do this. Only you can. That's pretty powerful right there. You know, I didn't teach any of my kids how to play golf because I knew how dang hard it was. So, you know, and if you're going to get your appreciation and your feeling good about yourself in life, golf seems to always push back on you, doesn't it? So it led me to more, and last year, Dr. Izzy Justice, he liked what I was saying on Twitter because I talk a lot more about the mind than I do about the golf swing. And he reached out to me and he came and started talking to me about the mind. And he's a neuroscientist, and he studies the brain like y'all study the golf swing. And see, all of y'all are trying to separate yourself from your neighbor sitting right next to you. You know, just like whenever I went out on the tour, I didn't want to tell somebody my secret because they might beat me with it. I know everybody in the room can feel what I'm talking about right now. And you know, I've never been one to shy away from the truth. But are we really helping grow the game this way? No, we're not. And I really found myself wanting to do more. How can I do something for the game? So Dr. Justice comes in, he starts talking to me about the mind, and maybe we can put the PowerPoint presentation up. There we go. Golf is mental health. It really is. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So look at that right there. Everybody, can y'all read it? In the 1950s, the brainwave activity, the EEGs, was 15 for an adult. And if you were 50 EEGs, you were considered schizophrenic. Today, the average human being, brainwaves, is 50. Do you know why? Because we're being shelled with so much information. And we need to be connected so bad that we're addicted to it. We need to be liked so bad that we're just addicted to it. How about that? Y'all see it. Average focus time is 10 seconds. And I will guarantee you, if you think about every lesson you give, you see that in your students. What prompted me with all of this is I couldn't get a kid to stay with me. You know, it was less important. They're looking away. They're not thinking about what we're talking about. And I knew, so when Dr. Justice came down, he started talking to me about this. I knew that he was talking about things I needed to know about. Let me share this with you. The pandemic is the mental attitude and the mental state of everybody, not their golf game, not their swing. We got to learn how to help their mind focus. Let's go ahead and go forward with the slide. Oh, how do I hit that green button? There we go. So how does this impact you? 1 hour lesson, you got 20 minutes of attention that you got. That's why I said 30 minutes is about all you can do. And everybody started, I know that raised some eyebrows with people. The last 10 minutes, if you can give them something that they can hang on to before they go to bed, they might remember it. You know, video presentation or something that you can give them that they can look at right before they go to bed. The most important parts of that, then they might retain it. 60-second pre-shot routine, they lose their focus 10 times. That's a fact. So, how many people have got a chipping epidemic in this room? Raise your hands. I need to see it. I see some. How many have got a putting epidemic? They just feel like, look at this. See all these hands? Thank you for the truth. There's others that won't tell us the truth. They're sitting on the truth. They can't deal with the truth. But here's what they can deal. Their mind is electrical. It's like a lightning storm. When they get that shot, they can't hit it because their brain is going just like that. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about, don't you? I got it when it comes to chipping. You know my best way of dealing with it? Don't chip.
Yeah, I feel that one.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not sure that there is a method that I could take and be successful with. Think about what I just said. There's not a method that one of y'all in here could teach me that I could be successful with. So what is my only other alternative to cure this? My mind. Putter, someone said putter. I've used that too. My mind is the only other thing that I can choose to do this, that I might cure it with. So, the quiet mind. Y'all look at that and think about it for a minute. I'm going to tell you a little story. Dr. Charles Kemp, I think it was in 1974, wrote a book. He was a professor at TCU. The book was so profound, it was called Smart Golf, that I had to go over and talk to him. I was a sophomore in high school. See, I'm curious. I'm trying to find out what people know that I don't know. So I go over and I said something to him. He interviewed all the greatest players. The closure of the book was the only thing he could conclude was they played their best when their minds were totally quiet. So people say, what were you thinking? Nothing. They were allowing themselves to do what they trained themselves to do forever. Now, I need to throw this in there. I hear a lot of people say that their muscles, you need to do enough so that you have muscle memory. let me assure you that not one muscle in this room, there's a lot of muscles in this room, not one muscle has a memory. Not one. Your brain is sending messages through the neurons in the back in the spinal cord to that muscle to do this. Not your muscle, your brain. So practice ain't got anything to do with it. Practice is just building this in your mind. And let me tell you something, when I was a kid, I didn't practice at all. I played all the time, trying to learn all the shots. Now, that doesn't fit this room because we all make our living off of a 1-hour lesson. And we've concluded that 1 hour might be too much. And by the way, they don't need to take them as often. I'm sorry. I'm avoiding, I hope you like me, but
it's like I'm
okay
going out of business.
We're trying to help people, right? Isn't that what we're really trying to do, is help people? So, Dr. Justice showed me this, and I'm going to give you all some real life situations to why this is true. This is neuroscience language right here. That's 3 real brains underneath that. Under the red is it's on fire with don'ts and do all sorts of things. Don't do this, don't do that. It's on fire. No telling what the EEGs are at that point right there. And yellow is where you can do something better. It's a little bit more normal. And of course, green is the famous the zone. That's where we're all trying to get to. And we don't stay in it very often. But let me tell you what I know, and this is the reason why this is the truth. The 2 greatest players in the game that I knew Byron Nelson and I knew Ben Hogan, but the ones that I saw, Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, they were the best at moving from red to green faster than anybody. That's why they were the best. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, Tiger made 10 on number 12 at Augusta. Anybody remember that? He birdied 5 out of the next 6 holes. If he didn't move from red to green, he couldn't have done that. You didn't ever see Jack Nicklaus back up a double bogey with more doubles and more bogeys. You saw him turn it around, whether it was just pars or even birdies. And most of the time, those sort of things were moments where they had to put their head in the towel and pull it all back together. And they did it just like that, because they knew they couldn't perform in the red zone. This is basically a brain track man right there. That little speedometer right there is a brain track man. And I can tell you, all of you know for sure when you are scared of something, you can't do it. You're going to more or less, you're not going to hit a good shot. You're going to get conservative. And let me share this with you while we're talking about the red and the yellow and the green. You better be very conservative with decisions when you're in the red. You better choose a target that is very conservative. And when you're in the yellow, you can be cautiously aggressive. And when you're in the green, you can step on the feet as hard as you want to. I've always compared playing golf to driving a car. So, you can speed when you're in the green. You better not be speeding when you're in red, and you better cautiously be speeding when you're in the yellow. Golf is a target sport. You remember me talking about the mind's eye, and I would say I was never looking at anything. My mind's eye was out there. I never brought my mind back to this spot right here. My mind stayed out there. It's the only sport that we play where we're not looking at the target. So my mind has to be quiet where I can see the target even though I'm looking down here. All the kids come into me, and I said this a while ago, they're like, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? Nothing. Everything in general, nothing in particular. Mind's eye. Brain has an eye, is thinking all the time. So what's the solution to this? Just as you expect, make adjustments on the course, mid-round. They got to be thinking about it. You got to bring your brain into that place, wherever that is. You can't be thinking about, what did coach tell me I had to do when I had to hit a draw? That's a really funny thing. People said, what were you thinking about when you hit a draw? I said, nothing. I just saw the shot I wanted to hit. My brain put me where I needed to be to do it. You know, we're thinking too much. We're thinking way too much. And we're actually teaching these kids to think it. You know, I'm struggling right now. I've got, between my wife and I, we have 5 children. And, you know, I'm not going to say anything about this, but I got a daughter, you know, that she doesn't really want, she'll take a picture of herself and send it up on Snapchat or Instagram or something like that, and it's half her face. That's kind of the way we're living our life. You know, let's take ownership of this. Let's figure out who we are, and let's be that every day. Let's teach our children to be that every day. You know, we're afraid to say things because somebody might not like it. I mean, there won't be any place for Hal Sutton going forward because I'm going to say what I think. And I think the world would be a better place if we were able to do that. You know, you're lucky if you get 10 minutes of real concentration. I had a kid in my bay the other day, and I mean, I'm not going to bring up any names, but his mother, it's a single mom, and she's spending her dollars to help him be better. He's 15 years old. And he was struggling to pay attention to what I was doing, and I called him by name, and I said, look at me right now. I said, your mother's spending hard-earned dollars for you to be in here right now. And I'm taking my time with you trying to help you be the best you can be. Don't waste your mother's money. And don't waste my time. Let's work on this. Let's get better. Let's see progress from week to week to week. Guess what? After that, the next 2 times I saw him, he was locked in hard, paying attention to me and getting better. You know, one of the things that I tell the kids all the time, it didn't take me very long to see this. You know, the golf ball owns everybody y'all work with, and you know it. It owns you too. So if I let them see where the ball's going to go, if I say, okay, go ahead and hit it, they're going to go to everything they've ever done in their past to help them get the ball to go there so they can impress me. So I usually let them hit 5 golf balls to begin with. Then I go over it with them, video, everything else, and then I say, okay, now we're fixing to change your golf swing without a golf ball. And it's the only way I can make them change. And in 20 minutes, I'll have them looking like they need to look. And I'll say, okay, now we're going to have fun and games. We're going to see if you can do that with that golf ball down there. But I already know the answer. And I challenge them, you can't do it. And one of them said to me the other day, how do you know I can't do it? I said, because no one else ever has. You'll be the first. If you can. Sure enough, he didn't do it either, you know, because he wanted to produce a result. The ball is the test. We're going to find out whether you really know this or not. And you know, when I was playing golf, when you saw me at those moments up there, I didn't think about how to do it. There wasn't one time that I thought about how to do it. I just did it. And that's what we got to get our brain to do. And the reason why I wanted to bring this presentation to everybody is because I think the pandemic is really the brain. Let me give you some facts. There are 8 billion people in the United States, in the world. There are 16 million devices. There are more devices bought every day than babies born. So do you think this is going to get any better? It's going to get worse. So what are we going to do about it? What's your role? I can't see any of you individually, but each one of you have a role. Where you go back to, you have a role. And your responsibility is not just to help make that person's golf swing better, but you want the experience of being in your bay, wherever you are, that you made a difference in that person's life. Not only in their golf swing, but in their life. So you do have a responsibility, not just to their golf swing. You need to make adjustments when it comes to this. And let me tell you, adults are not much better than kids. They're distracted, maybe even more so at times, for different reasons. You know, they don't necessarily have to be liked, but they just talk to their banker or their wife or their husband or I don't know who they just talked to, but it had an effect on how well they can concentrate while they're in there listening to you. So if you can't read that as their coach, you can't even start the lesson off right. So, and some of you probably already have figured this out. But I think we all need to be astutely aware of this going forward to make a difference in that person's life. We only have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to stop right there. If anybody's got any questions, I'll take on some questions. But I want to tell you something. I believe that the brain is going to get everybody to where they want to be, not their golf swing. And
Hal, one of the visuals that we both have of focus, and when students come into the academy, they ask if they can be basically coached on focusing or concentrating better. And I have little patience for that. I don't know about you. I think the same thing probably, because we both like that image of a lion going after prey. Like, the lion doesn't need to read a book on how to survive. It's either you're interested in something or you're not. So another example of a video that I have inside my academy that I play is a kid playing a video game. I mean, they're focused and they don't hear anybody calling them for dinner, and they didn't need to read a book as well. So I think a lot of this is, are you interested in actually doing something? And maybe they're not interested as well.
well, we see this. I know we see this. Y'all see this. Parents bring the kids in. Kids didn't even want to be there. I see a few heads. They turned the lights on. I saw a few heads doing this right there. You know, so how are we going to get them to pay attention if they don't even want to be there? Let me ask you a question. Did you think I wanted to be in Byron Nelson's presence when I first got to see him? Absolutely. First time I met Jack Nicklaus, I mean, this may take me longer than 2 minutes to tell this story, but this is the best story I got. So I'm going to give it to you. In 2001, Tim Fincham asked me to speak at the players' meeting. And I said, why do you want me to do that? And he said, well, because you've got something to say, and I know with your passion it'll be meaningful. Well, I didn't want to speak in front of all my peers, but this is what I did. After 6 weeks, I finally came up with something. I said, in 1982, I got my card, and I flew to Palm Springs, Arizona to play my first tournament, the Bob Hope Desert Classic. I said, I called Mr. American Airlines. And I said, Mr. American Airlines, will you sell me a ticket to go from Shreveport to Palm Springs? Well, of course I'll sell you a ticket. I said, why do I bring that up? Because 80 of you flew in on a private jet this week. I said, when I got to Palm Springs, I got off and looked at all the snow-capped mountains and the flowers. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever been in my life. I thought, oh man, I need a car. Mr. Hertz, will you rent me a car for the week? Well, of course I'll rent you a car for the week. Why do I say that? Tiger was sitting right over here. I said, why do I say that? Because Tiger Woods calls up and he said, I need 4 cars when I get there. Meet me at my airplane. And they're there. Back then, in those days, we paid for our cars. I said, I went to Indian Wells. It was the host course for the week. And I was hungry. I valet parked my car. That's really important. That's very important. I valet parked my car. I went inside and I was hungry. So I said, okay, I need to get something to eat. They sold me half-price script to buy a club sandwich. Now we have 7-course meals, 3 times a day. I said, I went out to the driving range and I bought a bucket of practice balls to hit $3. Nowadays, they got 10 different flavors. You need somebody to hit them for you too? We'll get somebody to hit them for you too if you want. Now, I'm talking to all my peers as I'm telling this story. And I said, so I went out and I hit my balls. I went out and played a practice round and I came back. This is my rookie year, first tournament of the year. Think about how I feel at that point. I mean, how grateful I am. I have reached my dream at this point. And I get back in and I go back to valet. I got the ticket in my hand like this and I walk up to the valet and I said, here's my ticket. Do y'all know how you've been in the presence of somebody, when somebody really important walks up, you can feel it all around you. I mean, people start scurrying and like, I look around, it's Mr. Nicklaus. I said, get in Mr. Nicklaus's car. Get mine later. That's called respect, boys. I said, let's show some of that from now on. So to me, that's the essence of the game right there. I had realized a dream and it had come true, and I was grateful and I was respectful for the opportunity, just like I am to speak to y'all tonight. Y'all have a good day.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Where are we going now?
I guess we're getting the boot.
We're getting the boot. Let's go. Let me take my water.
Folks, enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh my gosh.